Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I want to talk to you today about how you can design a poster that will make people not feel deeply sad to look at it. That should be everyone's goal. Actually, I'm going to close the door. And the reason that I'm here, and I guess I should introduce myself. I'll talk into the mic. I'm Kevin Dyke. I'm the Maps and Spatial Data Curator here at the library. And I also, due to the fact that I work with our maps, we are the location for the library's still new poster printer, and our poster printing service is located in my department. So that's the biggest reason I'm here, because just since we launched this new service in February or March of this year, we've printed over 700 posters. And so I've seen a whole lot of posters come through, and I've seen a whole lot of things that I might not want to do on a poster. I've also seen a lot of really good things that you should do on a poster. So I'm here to share a few of those insights. I'm not going to name names, so if you have printed a poster, don't feel, I don't know, threatened or anything. But really, and so what I'm going to start this talk out with is talking a bit about our poster printer and the service that we are offering, and the fact that it is free to OSU students, faculty, and staff. Free. Okay. There you see. There's my information. If you ever want to get in touch, hey Rodney. We just got a question about, is poster printing free for, I'm sorry, what? Oh. That is something there's a question about our poster printing service being available to outreach students, online students, and it's something we haven't directly addressed yet. It's come up in a more oblique way, where we were potentially going to print some posters for an entirely different campus down in southeastern Oklahoma. So we've discussed printing for remote folks. The real problem would be the logistics of delivery and packaging and all that, because that would increase our costs so much. And so yeah, so it's something that I'd say, considering the service is still new, that's something that we'll just need to take on as we continue to slowly grow the service bit by bit. Because wanting to keep it free means we need to be pretty conscientious about costs, because you all would not believe how expensive paper and ink can be. It's unreal. Okay, but very good question right off the bat. Okay, so the reason we were able to buy this big, nice printer for posters is due to the generosity of the President's Fellows of the OSU Foundation. They provided us a grant that allowed us to purchase the printer itself. The library had been absorbing the costs of supplies, which, as I said, are pretty expensive. But we're working to secure funds from donors to supplement and allow us to continue to offer this service for free. So that's that. Just to show off a little bit, this is what the printer itself looks like. It's in a very marketing type video. You can print stuff like this, no problem. But the biggest thing I wanted to show you is the fact that it says the first printer to include an integrated vertical trimmer. See that there? That means that, because most printers have a horizontal trimmer, it'll print, it'll cut off, you'll but then you'll have to go and cut along the edges manually. You have to train people, or you have to pay for a trimmer. It just takes so much time, so much money. So we bought this printer because it has an integrated vertical trimmer, meaning we print it and we pull it off and it's done. And that's a huge time saver, because I have student employees who work for me, who handle most of the poster printing, and they do a great job, but I only have each of them for 10 hours a week. And you multiply that by the roughly 300 posters we printed in basically a month and a half towards the end of last semester. We were just more or less continually printing. If you figure it's about 15 minutes per print job. You expand these things out and it gets pretty wild pretty quickly. But so we have a nice printer. That's all I was trying to say with that. So what does this thing feature? Up to 42 inches in width. So as we'll talk about designing and things like that, for the longest time, 36 inches was the standard, and it still is really the standard width when you're thinking about posters. But a lot of people, a lot of disciplines, particularly more data-intensive disciplines where you really need to display a large amount of information, or like in my original discipline of geography, where you need to show a lot of maps that are highly detailed and require just a whole lot of real estate to be of any use. That extra width is really important. So you'll see conferences saying posters can be up to 42 inches by 90 inches. That's not an unheard of size for posters. So we can accommodate a much broader range of sizes, and that's something that to keep in mind. Auto rotation, yeah, the trimmers I already talked about. Let's get away from that. So our service, we can offer you photo paper, which is a nice satin finish. It's very professional looking, very clean. It figures, images, maps look gorgeous printed on it. It's pretty durable. And then we also just have plain bond paper, which is more or less copy paper. And that's something, if you wanted to print something, if you wanted to just print a draft, or if you wanted to print something that you want people to be able to draw on or write on, for example, maps. I've seen a number of people print maps on the bond paper where they wanted to take it out and have like groups work on projects, writing on these giant printed out maps or sheets. And so those are the options. 2-day turnaround, generally quicker than that, but the idea is you'll have your deadline and you will need to give 2 days ahead at least to get it. So you submit it Monday at 1 p.m. We more or less guarantee that it'll be ready Wednesday at 1 p.m. And 90% of all cases, it would likely be ready Monday at around 4 p.m. That's our more common turnaround time, is the same day, but we cannot guarantee same day printing. And that caught up a few people this past December when they had something due at 2 p.m. the Friday of finals, and they came in at 12:30. So I don't want anyone to be caught off guard, because you can take it places and get it printed with that turnaround, but that's going to cost you $60 or $70. And I should mention again, this is free. So you should hopefully be spending more than half a day on your posters anyway. Go ahead and just push it back a little bit and give yourself time to take advantage of the service that through your fees, you're already paying for. There's the link where you can read all of our guidelines and actually get to the submission form. I'll show that link right at the end as well, so don't worry about writing it down. Okay, now let's talk about design. And I am not a graphic designer, I will say that. Do we have any graphic designers in the room? No, good, I can talk about them. Just kidding. We love graphic designers. But I do have a background in data visualization and cartography. And cartography, which is making maps, involves distilling a large amount of information into a digestible, small, concise, and emphatic amount. And that's really what poster design is all about. You need to distill the essence of what you're trying to say into a single flat sheet of paper, which is very difficult And as tempting as it might be to paste your entire 10,000 word thesis, please don't do that. Okay. Who in our room has designed a research poster before? A lot of you. So it looks like about half, maybe a little more than half of you have. So that's good. What was that initial experience like? Did you have a lot of guidance or direction in terms of designing a poster? Or did you more or less feel like you were just kind of told to create a poster? I'm seeing some nods. And I know in my experience it was more, make a poster. And thanks to the internet, at least, you can Google, how do I make a poster? And that gives you something. But the issue with the internet is that there are 18 trillion sites and you don't know what you're looking at, and you don't have a ton of time. So let's try and cut through that a little bit. So really, what I want you to remember, we're going to talk about templates, we're going to talk about sort of paradigms, things like that, but really it's up to you, and really what's going to make your poster successful is putting your own touch on it. And whether that be how you emphasize your project, how you highlight your results, how you include photographs that you took yourself at your research site or in the lab or anything like that. Like, it's those pieces that really make a poster successful, along with having clear, well documented text and all that. But you need functional design. So I want to talk about fonts. How do you choose fonts? How do you size your fonts? All of that. So again, these are just guidelines. I'm not condemning you to only choose whatever I tell you. It's not how I do anything. But really, you need to show restraint. Because as cool as a font as Papyrus is, it's maybe not the best way to let someone read your title from 10 feet away. And if you've ever been to like a restaurant in the last 10 years, you've seen that people love the Papyrus font. It's crazy. Okay. But really, what you need to do is pick just two different fonts. One serifed, one sans serif. A serif font is one that has the little notches at the ends of the S, the little curvatures at the bottom of the I, and so on. Sans serif is that generally more modern looking, cleaner lines, simple geometric shapes. And you can see the difference between the two there. So you see, and the reason you need to have one of each of them is that there has been a lot of research that shows that serifed fonts, because of those little embellishments, because of those ligatures in, I think that's the right word. Sounds good. Because of the flourishes in serif fonts, they are easier to read in like a paragraph setting. That's why if you look at any book you've ever read, you look really closely at the type, you'll see that they are all using serif fonts. If you read a book that was in a sans serif font, you probably get a headache afterwards, honestly. Like it's an amazing thing, but I think it's very true. And sans serif fonts are great for, so I said paragraphs already, yeah, but titles, headers, other short bits of information, you can highlight those and make them nice and bold looking using your sans serif font. So something like the king of all sans serif fonts is probably Helvetica. I think that one, there's like a documentary made about it or whatever. Or Arial, that's the default for so many of us. So if you think about it, Arial in Times New Roman, you could create a perfectly nice looking poster if you go with Arial in Times New Roman. Just because something is popular and used a lot doesn't mean it's not good. That's my defense of pop culture, basically. So those two fonts, once you have those, then you need to decide on sizing. And a rule of thumb, and this is not set in stone like anything else I'm telling you, but when you're designing your poster, you want it to be legible from a much farther distance away than you've ever read anything in terms of a book or a paper or a tablet or anything. You need to make it so it's legible from about 5 feet away. And that can be very, very difficult to just get yourself in the mindset of doing. And especially while you're designing a poster and you are rapidly running out of room, it's so tempting to just knock that font size down lower and lower and lower. And because you're just designing it on a screen, you can zoom in and it's like, oh, fine, it looks great. But when you remember that you're stretching this thing out in a static space, that's when you get into trouble. So make it so that it's readable from 5 feet away. And really, how do you test that? Print something on just an 8.5 by 11, tape it to a wall, step away. Can you read it? Good. If not, you need to bump it up. And if you need to, above all else, sacrifice words over decreasing your font size. That's the fewer words is always, always better. I know, and that is without a doubt the hardest thing for us to do with a research poster, because there's so much that you need to get across. Every detail is so important. You've agonized over so much of it, but you have to give a lot of it up. The recommendation I've read is commonly to shoot for a maximum of 500 words on an entire poster. And that's oftentimes just not possible, but it's a good goal. You absolutely need to be less than 1,000. That's like the one firm thing I will say. If you're over 1,000 words on a poster, you really need to do some editing and make some difficult choices, because what I think 500 words is about one single spaced page. And that's a decent amount. If you think how long does it take you to read a full single-spaced page of academic text? That's several minutes at least, more than that probably. And most people looking at a poster are going to give you at most like 5 minutes, and that's if they are willing to read, if they're interested enough to read every single bit of text on your poster. Which I don't know if you're like me, but you've probably only done that with a small percentage of the posters you've looked at conference poster sessions and things like that. So you got to reel them in early. When in doubt, make it larger. So your title, and these numbers are just, again, guidelines, but really it's more I'm emphasizing you need to have clear distinctions. So a title needs to be at least 60 points, upwards of 90, even bigger. And this will depend on how long your title is. Paragraph. So this is where you're getting at a more substantial number. I would say you don't want to dip too much below 30 in terms of just the body text of your poster. And 30, like again, it will seem huge because we're all used to using 12 point, or in some cases 10 point if you're desperate to cram more words into a paper or something. But 30 points, even for captions, things like that, especially for me working with maps, it's oftentimes impossible to fit everything in a minimum of 30 points, but that's a whole nother thing. I'm not going to go up on a map rant. No one wants that. So, and then you see, like, between your title and between that body text, you want some like subheading, a subheading tier, and this is all about visual hierarchy. This is all about making it as easy as possible for a viewer to look at your poster and within 10-15 seconds know where they need to go in terms of reading it, and knowing exactly where to start and not getting lost along the way, which you'd be amazed at how much of a problem that is. That's why people are tempted to, I'm being good about catching myself from blabbing on. Okay, so there's a couple examples. There's 90, 55, and 30 points. And those, I mean, this is not super helpful because we're looking at it on a giant screen and it's all not to scale anyway, but you get the idea. Relatively speaking, you want to have distinct variation between the different elements of your poster. But at the same time, if you have your paragraph text in your abstract at 30 point, you don't want to make this text in your results section 26 or something like that, because you might think it looks okay, but those sorts of inconsistencies add up quite a bit, so that when someone's just standing there looking, they'll just get this vague sense of unease as they read your poster, and it's because their brain is sensing some sort of imbalance or these differences, and it's just not something you want to encourage. So it's like when you're designing your CV or a resume, pick one, keep your design consistent. Consistency is almost more important than anything else. So even if it's the ugliest thing in the world, if you're consistent with it, people not have that much of a problem with it. That's it. So pick your 2 fonts, pick your 3 sizes, and go wild. Now, images are the bane of many a poster. Finding images on the internet, that's cool, but if it's only 200 pixels wide and you need it to be blown up to 6 inches by 6 inches, that's not going to end well for you. So really, a nice rule of thumb for that is if you're doing something like PowerPoint and you're adding an image, you might be tempted to stretch it and make it larger after you like drag and drop it into PowerPoint. Never do that, because the size it comes in as it's like, that's its full original size. You can definitely shrink it down. You'll probably want to, or at least you want to be using images that are of a high enough quality that you need to make them smaller to fit on your poster. That just means that you're guaranteed that they're gonna look okay when they're printed. Yeah, Pennsylvania. So if you're using a website, if you're pulling pictures, obviously you need to cite them. You need to make sure that you have rights in order to reuse their pictures. So that might require you sending an email or a contact form or something like that, just saying, hey, I'm creating this academic poster, and would it be okay if I used it with proper citation, that sort of thing. And then the open image and new tab option, which is something in, I know both Google Chrome and Firefox have it. It allows you to take an image that's just part of a website, and you'll open just the raw image itself at its normal size. And that's a really quick way to see, is this something that would even be conceivable to use in my poster, or is it just too small? And frequently with websites, it'll probably be too small, because when websites are optimized, they compress images and just reduce the size of them, because no one needs a 1,000 by 2,000 pixel picture that's only being used as the header image. They'll cut that down to 200 by 500 pixels or something like that. So you're butting up against very different use cases for images when you're getting offline. Okay. So I have an example here. So this is in full page view of the same picture in PowerPoint. So you see the one on the left is actually 150 pixels by 200 pixels. The one on the right is 3,000 by 4,000 pixels. This is in full page view in PowerPoint. So I made it so this is, I think, a 3 foot by 4 foot PowerPoint, but I zoomed way, way, way out. And you see they look fine for the most, like the one on the left looks a little fuzzy, but not too bad. The problem is when you look at it at 100%, you can see, I mean, look at the detail on this double fillet of fish. Yeah. Now this picture I took myself, so I have full rights to it. Copyright, McDonald's, Dallas, Fort Worth Airport. Oh, it was such a good sandwich. That's why I took a picture of it. But so you can see, like, and this is what this would look like if we printed it on a poster. It would just be a mess. And there have been so many times that we've printed people's posters, and it just looks like yeah, like a piece of pixel art basically, because it's so pixelated and indecipherable when you actually blow it out to 48 by 36 inches or whatever we're talking here. So the way to avoid that, print it out in black and white on one of the library printers at 100%, see what it looks like, go from there. Finding photos. Just a few tips on where you can find photos that won't be totally useless to you in terms of posters. Google Images is very useful, and they have a way to filter by reusability, so you can search for things that are officially licensed for reuse, so that you don't need to worry about contacting anyone or violating copyright or anything like that. Very handy, shows you the size. That's a great source. Then there are more curated sites such as Unsplash. Unsplash is a website that contains nothing but public domain, super high quality images. So you can just go to Unsplash and search whatever your topic is, whatever, and you can be assured that anything you find there, you are within your rights to reproduce in a poster. So it's a very, and they're very high quality too. Very handy. Oh yeah, Wikimedia Commons, also a source for freely available pictures that are generally pretty high quality. Okay. Now, I'm going to get a little nuts and bolts here, but I have a feeling that, well, not a feeling, I know that the vast majority of posters that get created are created using PowerPoint. And so we'll just talk a little bit about how do you actually create a poster in PowerPoint to the size that you need it to be. Because we've had a number of posters be submitted that are like full posters. They look just like any other research poster, but when we go to print them, they'll be 8.5 by 11 in size. And it's just the saddest little thing in the world to see that come off the printer. If we usually catch it beforehand, but the few times we haven't, it's like, oh, poor little fella. But so here's what you do. There's my poster. So you go to the Design tab in PowerPoint. You click Slide Size over there on the right. You can just set your width and your height using inches. You click Maximize, and it will bump it out so that it's the full size. The thing is, if you wait to do that until you've already designed the whole thing, you're going to have to spend a whole lot of time manually resizing things, because unfortunately, it's not smart enough to know what you want to do. So it's so easy to just do it at the beginning. So your blank canvas is the actual size, and so everything you're adding in there is going to be the right size. And also your images, you won't be tricked into thinking they're the good enough size when they might not be. So that hopefully can help. Another sticky issue that I think a lot of us encounter in our academic work is working with tables. Always, they're a fact of life. There's something you need to show, and frequently they're reproductions out of, say, a journal article or a book. So very tiny looking little thing, but you need to avoid the problem of scanning or just copying and pasting and trying to put the actual original table from whatever the source into your poster, because it will not look good. Like, it'll look like this. It'll look amateurish. So what I would say for any table that you need to reproduce on your poster would be to actually recreate it in something like Excel or in Microsoft Word. Like, transcribe it, properly cite it, but make it large enough so that it'll look okay. And also so that you can make it fit your the theme of your poster then as well, so it'll fit size-wise and color-wise and all that. And it's also a good sign that, or a good way to tell if the table you're trying to include is probably just not, it might not be something you want to include, because if you're feeling like, oh, this is taking me hours and hours to recreate this table, then think about who's going to actually look at the table on your poster. If it's 50 rows by 20 columns, there's probably got to be an easier way or a better way to share that information, a more concise way. So if you do that, so there's that same table I showed you recreated. This is an HTML table, but you get the idea. And so then you would put your citation there. That's like this came from this paper or whatever. Totally fine. Okay, now let's really get wild. So I want to talk a little bit about just how do you go about laying out a poster? What are some of the options that are available? What are the new trends in poster design? This is where I'll probably get kind of ranty. But the sort of mantra we've had for today is that less is always more. And that is absolutely cliche, but it could not be more true with posters. And so I shout out Colin Purrington's Poster Design Tips website because it is an absolute treasure. It is so useful. It covers the real nuts and bolts. I would have, if I was ever in a position to teach a class where I had people designing a poster, I would have them read through this page. And I would almost be tempted to quiz people on it because it handles so many of those edge cases and just the most common problems you see with posters. I'm actually going to show you through his site just a little bit. But mainly what I want to show you are some of the templates that he provides. And these are templates not in the sense that you can just plug and play, but an idea for how you can lay out your poster. So here is a good example. Big box in the middle, that's where your results could go. Introduction, you want to start up in your upper left, work your way down, results, conclusion, and then sort of like the metadata for your poster can go along the bottom where you have your literature cited, your acknowledgments, and then for further information, see blah, 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 blah. That's a very solid poster design, especially if you have a really important single graphic or two that you want to highlight. This would be perfect for that. Blam, throw it right in the middle, and you'd be off and running. Here's another one. Again, nice big middle section. Introduction, I would say that's one convention that you would be hard pressed to make a successful argument to change, is that the introduction will go in the upper left corner. That's where everyone's eyes will go to look for the entry point into your poster. If it's not there, you better have a really good reason for it. And I'm guessing, I don't have any familiarity with right to left language poster design. But I bet it's upper right for like, languages that read right to left. Does anyone know? No. But there you see, this gives you more room for your materials methods, a little less for conclusion. So it's sort of mix and matchable. You can see based on your content what might work best for you. And this is just giving you ideas, like it's not necessary. Here's another one, same idea. This combines results and conclusions into that large middle, into that large central portion. Generally, so this is a vertical. So the first three were all sort of landscape mode posters. I think for the most part, that's the way to go. Would be sort of the landscape, wider rather than taller approach, and a good reason for that is you want to avoid this phenomenon where if you've ever gone to a poster session, you'll see people squatting to read the bottoms of things. So it's another reason to put like the acknowledgments and like the not as meaty stuff at the bottom, because it literally just takes that much more effort for someone to, unless you're a person of lower stature. But yeah, you hate to see that. But you can see beyond these templates he has here, he just has what to put in each section, how to do's and don'ts. So here you go. That's a whole lot of do's and don'ts, but that's fine. It's very useful. It has some great ideas. Adding hidden panels. Like I actually haven't seen this too much, but the idea of putting a little flap on your poster and having people lift up, very cute. And I think that would be a way to really engage people, particularly if you have something that would make sense. 3D images, I have seen posters, especially in geography, where they've printed something in a stereoscopic, like just like the red-green 3D thing. So then you put a little pouch of 3D glasses in front of your poster and invite people to throw them on and check out your poster. Now that's a bit weird. Put an empty pack of cigarettes on there, like in this one. But yeah, adding actual physical objects to your poster would really be an interesting way to do it. It's a lot more work. Slideshows, movies. Sticking a tablet with a video on it is something that people have done. All sorts of stuff. Adding odors, I want to highlight this one. So if you can somehow add a scratch and sniff area to your poster, which that would be so cool. I would love that. But I try to think of what poster I've ever made would I make scratch and sniff on that? I don't know. But yeah, so great website, full of really foundational, helpful tips. But for the most part, it's a traditional approach to designing a poster, the sort of column and content box approach, honestly, if you think about it, it looks a lot like most websites look nowadays, where you have 3 boxes, you scroll down, there's more, blah, blah, blah. And the reason that's a common thing is that it's just, it's legible, it makes sense. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, sure. Yeah. That one I'm not as on board with. I will say that the vast majority of people who've been, so let me pull up, you see here, yeah, in very faded, it says do not put logos here. It's basically like the do not put, that sort of the hand clapping emoji thing. But I would say like most of the posters we've printed have the logos for like OSU or the department in those exact spots. I will say most of them very pixelated and oftentimes stretched. And I would say like the department and the university would be way happier if you did not include them in that case, because brand management are some of the most, they are conscientious people when it comes to guarding the brand, and that includes just it looking bad. So, so what he says is put logo on your business card, not posters. And honestly, I would be fine with that. It's not, because generally speaking, you'll put your affiliation next to your name, like he has there. Department of Posterology, which is great. So that's his take on that. But that's an obviously, I don't know. If we had easier access to high quality logos for every department and every program, I would say that'd be less of an issue. But it's dicey enough where I feel like it's not a requirement, because it ends up looking so bad so frequently. And for Pete's sake, people, I want to emphasize all of these templates. You'll see there's a very healthy margin around the entire thing. And I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to not put any content for your poster within basically the outside. I would leave at least an inch around everything. Maybe your title can be half an inch, but because of the way the printing works and the way trimming works, if you have something less than 1/4 of an inch from the edge, there's a pretty good chance some of it might get nipped off by the trimmer. And that's just how it is. And I would feel bad, but at the same time, margins exist for a reason. Oh, I ruined it. It was going to be so good. Let me take that again. Pause the recording. Margins exist for a reason, because, and it lends a feeling of roominess and just general comfort to look at a healthy margin having poster. It really, and just in general, around all of your text, you need to have margin. You need to leave white space. White space around the text, white space between your content boxes, white space in general. Do not give in to the urge to fill every bit of white space. Like I said, less is always more. And it might seem trivial now, but wait till you're looking at a poster on the screen and you just see what appears to be just this vast empty space, but don't fill it in. Just believe me, leave it be, and you'll be so happy at the end because it'll look so professional and so clean. I'm glad you all came here to hear me yell at you. Okay, so there was a bit of academic poster disruption that occurred this past summer, where this guy from, I think, Michigan State, can't remember his first name, but Morrison is his last name. Excuse me while I die. And so he came out with this thing. So has anyone seen posters like this? I am not a fan. I appreciate the impetus behind it, and the impetus is basically people need to stop including 5,000 words on their posters, but to go to this length where you just have a vast empty wasteland with a giant QR code and just basically your title, like, I just don't like it. And I've seen a few examples of these where this column over here is even more cramped and the fonts are so tiny that it just takes like the worst aspect of everything and puts it into one poster. Not to mention you get a huge waste of ink in the middle there, so you're costing, well, you're not costing yourself money. You're taking money out of my pocket. Feeding my family this ink. So there's, and that this came out this past summer, and it actually caused quite a stir. Like, it got covered in like news outlets, like, which is just bizarre to think. But it did speak to the fact that there are a lot of posters out there with way too much going on, and this is a way to avoid it. But I would encourage you, if you compare this to like that, it's not that different. You still have a larger space in the middle, that's the focal point, but in this case you actually put content there. Like you have a reason. Like we're not trying to create, I don't know, tweet-sized academic posters. That's not the purpose of an academic poster. Research posters are supposed to actually tell the story of what you're doing and your results and making your case. And it's impossible, really, I think, to do that with 10 words. You can try.
Okay, so if you are a poster session, so you don't know what you can do, and I have things that don't need to start one of the posters. Having something like this, because what you're doing is you're not trying to keep them to the entire message. All you're trying to do is get their attention. And the QR code goes to whether it's a publication or paper, something online that's in when you come to a franchise. And first of all, you have your attention, tell them, and second, they can get there. It's an attention to and the truth is, you're one of a few hundred, and if you have people with your concern and you're honest voiceover, they can afford this is going to make it.
Yeah, and so again, like that is an admirable goal, but the way it's executed, I just cannot get behind. because the idea, like the reason people's eyes glaze over is that they're reading posters with thousands of words on it, right? Not enough illustrations, not enough, too much. There's just too much, and it's horrible to read a poster with too much. So in this way, that is successful because it forces you to cut out some of it. But the use of, like, there's always room for a QR. Like, QR codes can be super tiny. You can put them in that further information box. I think that's a great idea. If you post some information about your study, some supplemental information on your personal website and your portfolio, link to it on your poster, great idea. I think that is a wonderful idea. But just the blank block of color with white text is just it's too dispiriting to me. There's so many beautiful visualizations out there, pictures, map, anything. And that is really what will make you, yeah. So that's my, and he introduced this with a 20-minute long YouTube video that I haven't actually watched. But the reaction to it was, everyone thought, that great idea for the poster thing, you should apply the same principle to this video because it does not need to be 20 minutes long, which, if I was that guy, I would feel pretty bad. He spent a long time working on it because it's like animated. You can watch it in your own. I'm not going to do it right now. Then there's the butter poster template, which I'll show you. This came in sort of in response to the Morrison thing. And this is a more design approach kind of thing. It has its own issues. It's difficult to, like, this violates that whole notion of where your introduction goes, but it's just something. The reason I'm showing you this is that there is these template links show tons of different variations on this theme that you can just download and go off and use if you wanted to. So that can be helpful. I thought I couldn't get back. That's good. Okay. So those are a couple of different designs that have sort of emerged very recently. This is a sort of an emerging thing. There's also a blog called Better Posters, where you can find just a long-running series of poster critiques where users will submit their poster to this guy's blog and he'll talk about it. And he'll be honest and constructively critical about the different posters. So I think, and so that is a great source because so often you just want to see, like, what are some of the different design ideas out there. I'll show you the most recent one on here is a really great looking poster. You see this the top half of this poster is all images, all related to the study, but just images. And then it just goes left to right. You see these headings. I love the size of these headings, the numbering. It's a very well designed, it's a very highly designed poster, but you see it's very simple to work through. And I would say, like, seeing the numbering through it, that's something to not, like, feel that you're treating your audience like dummies or something if you use a sort of numbering approach judiciously. It will not hurt to signpost throughout your poster. Because even at 3 foot by 4 foot, which is a very common size, but it's almost on the smaller side now, that's still a whole lot of visual real estate to navigate with your eyes. So don't hesitate to show people. Oh, I have no idea. Well, this is the kind of thing that, because with a poster printer, you have a giant roll of paper. So as long as you're under that width, you could theoretically print something as wide as this room. So this one looks like it probably could be, I mentioned like 90-inch wide posters before. This could be one of those, which seems bonkers, but look how beautifully executed it is. I mean, I guess if you're doing research on butterflies and bugs, it's like, yeah, you've got some really good visuals to work with. I need to get back. Okay. Okay, back to some more nuts and bolts. This is where this is what we call a pain point in the biz, is exporting out of PowerPoint as a PDF. I want to emphasize you need to export as a PDF because we don't print PowerPoints, and I don't think most print shops don't print directly from a PowerPoint. You'll need to give them either an image or a PDF. PDF is sort of the standard, but you need to export it. Otherwise, if you choose print and then like choose the destination as PDF, it will just give you an 8.5 by 11 version, even if you set the slide size correctly. Let me tell you, that throws people off. So here's my awesome poster again. So you want to go to File, Export, Create PDF. And this is all, these couple of GIFs I've shared are on the library, on the poster printing website under the tips section. So don't, you can see it there. But make sure you export out. Testing your print job. I've hinted at it a few times when you're sizing fonts, when you're talking about images and their appropriateness for use in the poster. And really, the best way is to print your poster at its full size and take a look. Now, even though our service is free, we only allow 2 prints per semester per individual. So you could use your one of your jobs for a test print, maybe on the copy paper that I mentioned. But another way to do it, if you just want to check, well, I probably made a very loud noise, the mic. If you want to just check sizing and things like that, and you're not necessarily, when you want just a very rough draft idea, you can open the PDF in Adobe Acrobat or Reader, click Print, and then under Page Sizing and Handling, click on Poster. And what that will do is cut up the PDF into a set of tiles. So then you can, so like a 3 by 4 foot will get chopped up into something like 12 or 15 8.5 by 11 sheets. So then what you can actually do is tape those together, is to trim them, tape them together, and then you'll have a representation of your poster. And that may seem like a lot of work, but when it comes to making those finishing touches on your poster, that amount of time will not, that's nothing compared to the rest of the time you spent working on the poster. So when it comes to proofreading, that's a great way to do it. Because we don't do free reprints when you realize you spelled your advisor's name wrong, which has happened like 10 times. So that would cost you your second print job for the semester, and it would just make us very grumpy because we hate wasting paper. But yeah, doing this really, really rough draft, I mean, this is something you could go up and do on any of the library, on any of the computers down on the first floor. I'm used to saying up because I am a basement dweller. But if you go down on the first floor, any of those printers, you could just print out your poster like that, take it home, spread it out, or get a study room in the library, spread it out, take a look. And it's incredibly helpful. Yeah. Let me show you.
And now all you need to do is go.
I'm just going to mute her. So there's an Adobe print. There's under Page Sizing and Handling, click Poster. If you see on there, it says tile scale 100%, so that ensures that you're actually printing it out. You could do it at half scale if you wanted, and that would cut down the number of pages to work with, but then honestly, that sort of defeats the purpose. It shows you how it will be tiled up. You can set it to overlap, which helps with cutting. And then when you do it, so imagine that's your example. Let's skip ahead. There are your 2 outputted sheets. Trims off the edge, tapes it together. Imagine that, but for your poster. It's very arts and crafts in a way. but can really save your butt when it comes to proofreading and just making sure that you are printing something that you will be happy with. All right, that's all I had to talk about. You can visit, actually I'll probably just pull that up as a spot to visit. And here's a giant QR code that you can also use for getting to the form for poster printing. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say for now. And I would love to take any questions from you all. Excellent question. So we had a question about choosing a background color for your poster. Not anything in particular, but I would say lighter is always better. Using anything where you put like white text on a dark background doesn't work too well, and it wastes a ton of ink, honestly. But for the most, I would say lighter is always better. Honestly, a white background is not a bad looking thing, particularly if you're using OSU orange. The orange works well with a white background, and then just strong black text is a very crisp and a very a nice and easy way to go. But like the template I showed, it was like a light gray background, and then the boxes were white. That's another way you could do it, is have a subtle background color, but then making sure that you have very high contrast between your text color and the color behind the text itself is important. Yeah, lighter, generally better. Anything else? I don't know, honestly, to me, that's like a nightmare, so I don't know. I avoid it at all costs. But really, that's where having visuals, I would just say that's the most important thing, because if you're like me and you're talking about your work, it's very helpful to have a graph or something that already has done a lot of work to synthesize what you're saying at the text, rather than pointing at this giant block of text like as you're talking to someone. That's really all I would have for that. And I mean, knowing your stuff that's a given in a way. But.
It helps to know what your venue is, because as you were saying, I was picturing that one that you showed that was just like a straight across. So if you're in a venue, you'll be able to, just kind of walk and point to each section. But other venues where, again, you get back to the hundreds of posters with, mobs of people, then, perhaps having things at the top, just the attention getting stuff up at the top would be the way to go. So, try and keep I think the point is try and keep the actual presentation aspect of it in mind as you choose your design. So.
Yeah, knowing the venue, knowing the organization, knowing your discipline, like who are the kind of people who are going to be attending and harassing you. Anything else?
That's good.
You would be the one to notice that, Madison. I'm just kidding. There's no difference. The reason that GIF I showed had two options is if you have like the Adobe suite installed, like they have their own bespoke export to PDF option, but PowerPoint has a built-in export to PDF option, which is the one I picked. I've not noticed any actual difference between the two. So whatever strikes your fancy. So if you don't have access to like Adobe Acrobat Pro or whatever, you won't see the top option there. So that's the only difference. For the most part, I think, at least in this simple regard, PDF's a PDF. Anything else? Yes.
And so I just wanted to share with you that if there is some sort of office-specific tool, or you're looking at libraries, I'm not coming to agreement yet on exactly if this person contributed that to be a author on this piece or not. Please work that out so everyone's satisfaction before you go to print. I have, in my career, presented two university and federal investigations exposure I say I presented them because someone told me in two different institutions, two different situations where they called me and they said, someone was taking a poster and they dropped their name. I heard that this person was presenting a poster at a conference and they dropped their name on it. But I can prove that I consider this situation. That could be through a plagiarism. If that work was all federally funded, funded by the university that has programs in schools, it can really affect your career. So, what's a little warning? Please be careful about this. Consider everyone agrees to that you can consider that student authors are. Because a poster presentation is a publication in the same way that it's scholarly work. And I do not want to make
Thank you very much. That's very, very, very useful now. And also, sort of along those lines, I know something I came across, actually from Colin Purrington's website, is talking about like the whole notion of including QR codes on your poster can be potentially troublesome because there are poster presentations where your neighbor might not want their poster to be like photographed, like shown online. Like if you're going to make your poster available, like you need to make sure that people might not. Certain organizations don't allow photography within a poster session, for one. So someone taking your phone out to scan your code or whatever might not go well. But so yeah, so just that's another strong recommendation to really research where you're submitting your poster and to understand what you're getting into and to follow the rules and to make sure that you're not backstabbing a co-author or something like that. Make sure having your authorship lined up is critical. Anything else?